Hey, how are you? This is the Howler Mouse channel, and I'm your host, Howler Mouse, and we're going to talk about Neil Gaiman. I'm not going to go into detail on some very disgusting things I've read online. And also, I'm going to let you know that I'm coming to you live January 20th. Wow, that late in the month, 2025. And it is about 5 to 8 degrees outside. So we have the fireplace going, and there will be a fan in the background. Just how it's going to be because I'm not going to freeze this morning. And so if you've been living under a rock, and especially if you've been living, not fair to say, not under a rock. This was first reported, as far as I can tell, the first time I heard about things back in July of 2024. What was it? Tortoise podcast, right? Had reported they had been doing interviews and in-depth investigative journalism where there was at least 2 to 3 people allegedly accusing Neil Gaiman of some allegedly horrible things with them, right? The essay, if you will, accusations. And in that time, if you were online, if you were into comic books, if you were into YouTube, it really seemed like the only place you were hearing about these things were, on YouTube videos, websites that kind of covered comic books and a few things, book reader, YouTube videos and things, but not the mainstream. That's my whole point, not the mainstream. So as you went along, you found out that this is different than the other accusations that we've heard over the years, i.e., Ed Piskor and other people, over the years. This one actually had a criminal investigation going on. New Zealand police were investigating some of these accusations. People had actually reported a few things, and his wife, Amanda Palmer, allegedly said that she knew about these things going on when one of the nannies came to her to say how Neil got her in the bathtub and presented her butter and things like that she was like 14 other women have this same story. All right. So right off the bat, all of this is allegedly. I wasn't real sure if I was ready to talk about it because I want to put out a few things here before we get into the talk. And one of those is that there is an investigation going on, and I'm one of those people that I do believe in due process. The other thing I want to say is I do not believe all women. I do not believe all men. I do not believe all cats. I do not believe all dogs. The human survival instinct is too strong to assume that someone is always going to tell the truth, right? So I'm actually glad that there is a investigation going on. See what else is there, and I just want to get that out of the way, right? So some of the things I want to talk about is the fact that I'm using a source, and it is in the description. WatchMojo UK, about a 10-minute video. That is my source, and I'm going to reference a documentary that is on Tubi as we speak. If you have the Tubi app, called "Dreaming Dangerously," and it's following Neil Gaiman around while he was like on a book tour doing an intensive thing. And that's where I started picking up on a few things. Okay. So here and now in the live, if you're watching live, I encourage you to subscribe, hit the bell, thumbs it up. And I highly encourage you to leave comments in the section. Pretty much I may just read them and may not have an opinion because you are open to your opinion. So everything I'm saying here is like alleged. This is off of news and stuff. But what happened with this, to get back on point? Oh, we've got all kinds of people. Great. So the way I'm looking at this, I was asked by friends, actual friends in real life, and a few people from the YouTube because they know that I have read Neil Gaiman's work going back to 1988. I have done things where I've talked about Neil Gaiman years and years on this channel, reference things. I have a poster of his promotional poster of his Sandman stuff over here. I have the complete collection of his Sandman stuff. I have tons of his graphic novels. I have Good Omens that I bought in 1990. He's actually, thanks to Twitter at the time, Neil Gaiman caught me talking about this on my old account and actually acknowledged me. So I've had a little interaction with him. Short stories by him. I've studied a lot of his work, even though it may be graphic and sequential art in nature. And we have annotations of things that he has that I've been reading, such as American Gods, the annotations, right? So that's his work. And that's what a lot of people are doing right now to look at these allegations. They're going back to his work, specifically a story from Sandman called Calliope about an author who captures his muse, an actual muse from mythology named Calliope. And he does things like essay, he dominates over her and just tortures her more or less in life and everything. And people are trying to read into that. Okay, does that have anything to do with it? I don't know, but I want to bring up something, right? On one hand, to just be fully transparent here, is in the 90s, when I got around to reading a story of his where Lucifer abandons hell, Sandman Seasons of the Mist, one of the greatest comic book stories ever. I'm not going to take away the man's merit. But the thing about it is that I was really uncomfortable with the idea of taking a character such as Lucifer and sort of making him a cool guy who just was misunderstood. If there are a few things that are black and white in this world, and Satan and Lucifer and the devil is the epitome of evil. Okay, I mean, if he's being really cool to you and being, everything he's doing, the character would be manipulating you and stuff, right? And right off the bat, that sort of like set me off a little bit. I actually steered away from Garth Ennis for years over his preacher stuff and everything, right? It's one thing to have your opinions on religion and things like that, but it's another thing to profit off of them. So right off the bat, 1988/89, my first Sandman at number 7, still has the UPC sticker that I was supposed to peel off of there. Was the first time that I finally got a hold of some Neil Gaiman work. And I could tell that this guy was a reader. And then I would find his work such as Good Omens with Terry Pratchett. And it took me a little while to figure out this was satire because he delves into the religious stuff. Sometimes it felt a little mockingly, and then sometimes I totally understood that it's kind of art. Art can be hard. I was also, in all fairness, at the same time, reading Mark Twain's Letters from the Earth without realizing or knowing when I was 17 that Mark Twain was a hardcore atheist, stuff, right? So what I'm trying to get at is that this could mean nothing. This could just be inspiration and interesting subject matter to have people think. Art, writing, these things have a trick to them. And that is that they will expose more of the person looking at it and how they're interpreting things and their reaction than the actual works. That was my reaction to it. Makes me suspicious. If you are questioning things like the devil not being pure evil, it kind of makes me think you may be rationalizing and justifying things in real life, that state of mind. But that's the joy of writing, interpreting things like that, the joy of reading other people's writing, looking at their works. So there you go. That's where I'm from. I'm not really completely fully invested in the Neil Gaiman investigation or what comes out of it. If he's a horrible person, he's a horrible person. But I'm just glad there's an actual investigation, which is going to kind of steer me back around. I'll do comments in a minute. It's going to steer me back around to something that happened, I believe, last year. I had a live stream up before an incident happened. I took it down out of respect for the family, but I followed it with a video where I backed my statements up real quick. I'm not that worried about generating views enough to keep something up there like that. But we had a writer-artist named Ed Piskor. If you were a fan, what was it? Cartoonist Kayfabe was his channel. He had multiple works of indie work and a few things at Marvel, and he had quite a fan base through YouTube. I felt for that his comics. I checked out their videos, but I didn't really stick around too much because everything they were doing, I've been doing YouTube since about 2010, I believe, and everything they were doing, we had already done before. So this was for new people to come in and see things that I felt were being rehashed. And at times they were bringing great works of unappreciated works of art to the forefront. So it was, about half and half for me when I would check things out. They also did a fantastic interview with Howard Chaykin and things like that. So it had its merits. But he started getting accused of things, online things, it appears. And it was he was checking out to make sure that the girls he talked to were not underage. And he was, from what I can recall, allegedly doing things like talking to girls online, seeing that they were interested in art or trying to get into comics. And then he would tell them that he's got a place they could sleep in his house. He had an art studio. He had all these things. My stance is that the guy was, how can I say this? The guy wasn't dangerous. He was just too dumb to realize that he was being played. Okay. They released some of the conversations, and it was like the trap was thrown out and Ed just kept stepping in it. It's what it felt like to me. The guy was just too dumb or too lonely, or something had affected him to where he had a little bit of arrested development. It felt like, felt like he was trying to be a cool kid, like, hello, my fellow kids, to hang out. I have my opinions of it. A lot of people are still very angry of it. A lot of people are very angry that Neil Gaiman was sliding by when this happened to him. And the pressures of the people that Ed Piskor was associated with caused him to, what is the term that we use on YouTube, unalive himself. And a lot of people were very upset. This is going to upset people, I realize it, but as someone who has dealt with depression, as someone who has had people unalive themselves that I was very close to, starting in 10th grade, also when I was 19 and a few other things, I feel like he took the coward's way out, but we have no idea what was going on. And it was vicious. It was vicious because the local news in Philadelphia showed up at his dad's house, and his dad was on a porch defending himself. And I saw it on YouTube, and I'm like, this is vicious. So just because I felt like that's what Ed did was a coward's way out, I also am not going to sit here and act like I did not have sympathy for people who are going through that. That's horrible. Nobody should have to go through that. So let's do comments before I check out. I'm on my second cup of coffee because it is, like I said, between 5 and 8 degrees outside. I can feel the cold of this world coming through this window, as you can see. So let's see who's here. All right, like I said, John says good morning. Be like John. Make sure you subscribe, hit that bell. Go ahead and thumbs this up and share it. Let people know we're here. She said this should be good. I don't know. I hope. Zeke H Comics, great to see you. Victor Shade is here. We got the cast. We got the usual suspects here, man. We got our fantastic circle of regulars here. And we have the great Gore Vidal. I want to plug this. Go back a few live shows from this past weekend. Gore Vidal and I did a fantastic, I am tooting our own horn, fantastic deep dive into the Frank Miller, David Mazzucchelli classic Daredevil Born Again, especially if you're getting excited about Daredevil show coming out. JLS Comics, are you able to separate the art from the artist? Yeah, absolutely. And hopefully if I can stay on track here, I always do these videos shooting off the hip. I may walk around, I may drive, think of a few things I want to talk about. So yeah, you guys can steer me to make sure I talk about that. Victor Shade, I enjoyed their videos. It exposed me to some great independent work I haven't seen. And that's it. That's what I'm saying. He's talking about, I'm assuming you're talking about Ed and his crew and cartoonist kayfabe, and that's why it's cool. It's not one of those things of it was just uninteresting to me because I feel like the comic book one was actually a real tight community with very few stragglers and stuff out there. We covered a lot of what they did in similar formats and stuff, so it was just a new generation coming in, you know what I mean, coming in doing their thing. So that's what I'm getting at. I think, if anything, it might have bothered me they didn't acknowledge the videos they watched that inspired them to start their channel. That might have bothered me a little bit, But getting back to Neil Gaiman and Ed Piskor, right? So what is the difference between Ed Piskor and Neil Gaiman? When the accusations came out for the first time against Neil Gaiman, like I said at the beginning, from what I understand, guys, link to WatchMojo UK, the video I'm using as a source. It's about a 10-minute video. There's so much information out there and so many other videos coming out with feminists and male feminists and book readers. They really have a biased opinion. So if you're here for that, no, you go on. I'm going to reiterate, I don't believe all women. I don't believe all men. I don't believe all cats. I don't believe all dogs. The instinct for human nature, human survival is just the nature of the beast to where we're capable of lying, you know, no matter what. But anyway, so they come out, and like I said, YouTube is talking about it. Online communities are talking about it. It's on X. It's on this. It's on that. And then people start noticing, why is the mainstream not picking up on this? Why are they going after that? And that's why I felt like Neil Gaiman was going to escape this and skirt on by, is because he may have, you know, he was a journalist. He was writing short stories. The first one he had was written in 1984. It's in here, Bangs and Whimpers, which is a collection of short stories from 1999. I got this from a book club for a penny. And in it, it has a story that he did. We can get it for you wholesale or something that's copyrighted in 1984. 1988 comes up. He's hanging out with Alan Moore. He's a fan of comics. He's doing a few things. He turns in a script that would be published later. And then he starts his Sandman stuff and some Secret Origin stuff and working in comics. And that's where a lot of people first heard Neil Gaiman, at least here in the States, the Sandman work. And then around issue, what was it, 19 or something, with Charles Vess, he does the Midsummer's Night Dream Shakespeare story, and it wins a sci-fi writing literary award, where they changed the rules so a comic book can never win. And that seems to be the time between that and the character of Death that he put in the comic with Sandman #8. That was it. All of a sudden, it was like Neil Gaiman was everywhere. We were hearing about him. He became a rock star in comics. Later on in his career, he would start coming out with books like I've Shown, American Gods, Anasazi Boys, which I couldn't finish, Stardust with Neil Gaiman, which was prose with some Neil Gaiman and Charles Vess, prose with some sketches and art throughout, not sequential art and stuff like that. And it got turned into, we've had Neil Gaiman books and stories and things turned into movies. Coraline, Stardust, off the top of my head. Then he dwells in there, and we get some shows based on his work. We get the Sandman show on Netflix. We get Good Omens on Amazon, right? Dead Boy Detectives, which was mysteriously, I never watched it, so I don't have opinion on it, but Dead Boy Detectives, based on his work, did one season on Netflix. There's no reason to yell conspiracy there. It's Netflix. You know, they'll cancel something in a heartbeat. So that's what I'm trying to say. This wasn't in comics. Ed Piskor in comics. Okay, Neil Gaiman, novels, journalism. I don't know how big of a journalist he was in the 80s. Like I said, novels. He's a superstar. Movies, moving around, hobnobbing with people. He shows up on, he marries a rock star, Amanda Palmer, and he shows up in the background playing a little keyboard tune on Letterman with her and stuff, right? So that's what I'm trying to say. He had more of a career outside of comics than he did in comics, even though he would come back to that well. And from what I could tell, he always let you know he appreciated that start. That's why he would kind of come back and be sort of, you know, would always kind of, you know, work in comics, never really seemed to be above that stuff, right? Oh, wow. There we go. There we go. We'll go through some things, right? So that has a lot of people very angry, at least that I've seen online, professionals and such, right? Ramos Comics, who's on a show on Jared Osborne's channel, The Cavern of Chaos. On Facebook, he reposted, I think it's Don Simpson. Is that the guy that does Megaton Man? He didn't mention names, but he vaguely stated how upset and mad he still was of Neil Gaiman seemed to be skirting by. At least that's how I interpreted it. And an unnamed artist, you know, didn't, and ended up got crushed under scrutiny. So I was actually sort of telling people back in July and throughout that he's going to get by. He's going to skirt by whatever's going to happen. I still have the text. I can probably pick up the text, and I should have looked them up before, but I say there's going to be other accusers coming up. That's how these things always work. And I think we're up to 8 now. And then it finally hit mainstream. It took a while. I actually heard, and I don't think it's true, but I actually heard that New Zealand had already had an open and shut case over these accusations of the nanny, and things like that. I don't understand now. Months later, it's still going on because we are up to 8 as of today. But I thought he was going to skirt by. There's going to be some other accusations coming by. There's going to be NDAs. We're going to find out about payoffs. Problem is these people stuck around. Okay, there's all kinds of reasons. There's scrutiny, and also this isn't the first time that we've seen this happen. We are living in the age of P Diddy and Baby Oil. We're living in the age of Bill Cosby. I think he was the first real high profile person that shocked people and stuff. Right? This has unfortunately started to become the norm. And there's always people, cliches become cliches for many reasons. Don't meet your heroes. There's a reason that became a cliche. These things are always in truth and through experience. And then something happened. You can correct me if you're wrong, but if I'm wrong, but if I remember right, New York Magazine, New York Post, something like that, it finally hit a mainstream news outlet, or a mainstream, something more mainstream, to where the muggles that are outside of the bubble of hobbies and reading and comics and things, all of a sudden, the guy that's had these movies and these TV shows, that's how they know him. Now it's getting out. Now people are paying attention and things are heating up. So some of the problems I have that I hope to see answers that come out is, if you follow this, Amanda Palmer allegedly claimed when one of the nannies came to her and told her what was going on with Neil, what Neil was pulling on her in a bathtub and whatnot, and fecal matter. Fecal matter is involved, which is why I'm not going over everything. It turned around and she was like, 14 other people have said the same thing to me. So she was knowledgeable about it. And she seemed to be the one to keep sending the nannies to the house where their son was, while Neil was there. Why do they need a nanny if Neil is there? I know they're wealthy. I know they're rich. I know they think other things. They don't think the way we do, which is why I always try to tell people, don't go to celebrities for anything, any kind of advice, but especially like politics and things. They live in a completely different world than us. And it seems like she just kept feeding the machine, is how it comes off to me. If that's true, it's not, I don't know. So it seems like in the midst of all this, Amanda Palmer seems to be coming off. You can go back and look at Amanda Palmer's work. I was exposed to it through someone I was dating back in 2016 with Do It With a Rock Star. Highly influenced by Lou Reed, David Bowie, a few things, and highly hypersexual things like that, right? You can go to a website, YouTube channel called Amoeba Records, where they have Neil Gaiman and Amanda Palmer in their record store, and they're showing what's in their bag, what's in my bag. And you can tell the way they talk, there's a little bit of an elitist attitude. You can go to Tubi right now. I checked this morning, and you can find the documentary that I referred to a minute ago called Dreaming Dangerously, where a film crew followed Neil Gaiman around, gave a little bit of his biography. And as a kid, apparently with what they're showing in this, is Neil Gaiman was constantly reading in a little world of his own. They actually had a little kid in a boat, if I remember right. I watched it several months ago. A little kid in a boat floating along, in a little England town, reading Lord of the Rings or things like that. And he read constantly, kind of in his own little world. But then there was a scene in it. And I do want you to find the scene. But when he's on this book tour and they're talking about how he's going to all these places and working these long hours, making sure that every fan gets a interaction and a signature and things. There's a scene that really did disturb me, but it piqued my interest. I was like, because I'm going to tell you about where this is going now. We're finally getting to the meat of the matter, where I got a little speculation, and that's all it is speculation. But there's a scene where he's walking through, I believe, an airport. Okay, and there's people around, or he's leaving a building or something, and he's walking sternly. And I'm like, is this real? Because a person is chasing him while he's walking very fast, straight, looking straight away, straight forward, not even looking left and right. I'm on a mission. I got to go. I'm leaving. He's like, can I get a picture with you, Neil? And Neil's like, if you can do it while I'm walking, because I'm not stopping. And right there was, I've seen that in real life. That behavior, and I'm like, oh my God, he's got a superiority complex, or he may have a God complex. But all of a sudden, it was like he was playing a game with someone, or this was staged for the documentary, or I'm just reading into it too much, taking things I've seen in real life and projecting them, and that's fine. So here's what I think happens. If you've watched this channel over the years, you've heard me talk about how, like, I was around an art crowd in the 90s, and I dabbled in art. I do things, and there's been a couple times, and most of the time it's just really nice people who like to draw and paint and do things, right? But then you get the ones who I like to say they're very dramatic. I kind of call them, I used to call them Patti Smith crews, okay? But you get the people who were like, also they're a little bit political, a little bit activist, and they for some reason think poor personal hygiene is making a statement about it. I never quite could wrap my hand around it, and that's sort of why I sort of veered off from them. I couldn't understand it. You know what I mean? Um, I do my own thing and going, I'm just a guy that like, got into comics. You know what I mean? Just, I read comics and then like I went to a few museums and took a few classes in art history. You know what I mean? I started out with Charles Schultz when I was 4. You know what I'm saying? And they just kind of really like weirded me out. Then you find out that they dabbled in some weird games, social games and stuff, cruel intentions, kind of stuff. If you've read that kind of things, and I was like, they're just very odd, very weird, and I couldn't understand it, right? So along the lines, I would start meeting people who did like indie comics here and stuff. And again, if you go to comic book conventions, you'll see that they're just normal and stuff. But then all of a sudden, you kind of get these vibes from people that kind of get you, right? So this is a real thing. This is not an epiphany. This is not something that I came up with. I have a BSW, so I've took like minor classes in psychology and read a few books. So by no means am I saying this is an actual diagnosis. Don't come here for advice. It's not that kind of thing. Where did it go? So I've already pulled it up, and it is writers having God complexes. So let me pull it up here. Well, what do you know? I've got 18 windows open in the one I need. All right, do history. Give me 1 second here, guys. There we go. So I'm going to read off directly what is out there because this is a real thing, okay? And it goes, a writer's God complex refers to the psychological phenomenon where a writer believes they have an excessive amount of power and control over their characters and stories, essentially acting like a deity who can manipulate their fates of their creations within their narrative, often leading to an inflated sense of self-importance and the feeling that they are superior to others due to their creative abilities. Like I said, this is not a new thing. This is an actual thing. I have a movie that you can check out by the Coen brothers called Barton Fink. He actually completes a movie script and he goes to a celebration for the military, who's guys who are leaving for World War II, and they have a dance for them. He goes in there and tries to act like what he is doing is more than what these soldiers are doing for World War II. Okay, key points to a writer's God complex. Creation and control. Writers with a God complex often feel like they are acting creatively in creating a universe within their stories, the ability to decide every detail of their characters' lives and destinies. The God aspect stems from the parallel drawn between a writer's power to shape narratives and the perceived power of God to control the world. Potential negative effects. While a certain level of creative agency is necessary for writing, a strong God complex can lead to arrogance, difficulty in accepting criticism, and resistance to feedback on their work. Now, one of the reasons that some people that I've run across over the years, it seems like it was more than one, is that they've spent too much time alone in isolation working and things like that, right? And I think I'm referring to the exception. I'm talking about things I've really seen. Is this what's going on with Neil and Amanda and all them? No, I'm not saying that. I'm just saying, based on a few things I saw, I'm like, wow, it's happening again. So kind of what happens is that I think you end up becoming so famous and having so much money because allegedly one of the women that has accused Neil of things, she got $300,000 allegedly. Okay, like that was nothing, and yet this behavior supposedly kept going on, right? So I think you end up living in a bubble or world. In my lifetime, I have worked for rich people and I have worked for wealthy people, the ones who pay the rich people, and they are in a world all of their own. Got to be born into it to understand. It's all I can figure out. So, in order for Neil to constantly have a fan base that will come out in droves, and practically worship himself. And we know with fame, we come with the idea of groupies throwing themselves at you and stuff. That becomes the norm. And what I kind of think is Neil got old. Okay. Neil's in his 60s and still trying to live like he's in his 30s and 40s, things like that. That happens to a lot of people. I don't know. I don't know. I'm just speculating. So let's check out what we have here. We got a lot of comments, and we'll get through them real quick. Oh, Matilda Gothic is here. How are you doing? Matilda says, I still read his works. I can separate him from the stories. We'll see whatever comes out. I agree with you. We have Valentino Doggy brings up Ed Piskor, does not mention Alex the Campy. Yes, too much alleged stuff, right? Alex the Campy has her reputation online. There's no protecting her here. It's that I don't know. Okay, you know what I mean? But yeah, here we go, man. Brings up Ed Piskor. Here is Alex the Campy being mentioned. People can go on about their business and do a little digging on their own. Jared Jones is still the worst of them all, if you ask me. JLS Comics, absolutely. And not only can we talk about Jared Jones if we wanted to, but he's actually been convicted and served time, right? That's what I'm talking about. Due process work for all the horrible kitty stuff he had on there that he got caught up with. That's why you don't see, I don't even mention this stuff. I've got comics in there that I'm just uncomfortable having. You know what I mean? Yeah, Dresden Dolls. Okay. Valentina Doggy. Okay. Reading lots. I know nothing about Dresden Dolls, believe it or not, man. Reading lots of L. Ron Hubbard, I'm sure. Oh, okay. Getting into the Scientology stuff. I got you. Here we go. What will complicate this for some of the women is that they remained. Ooh, man, we got a lot of comments coming in. I'll cover what I can here, guys. What will complicate this for some of the women is that they remained in a sexual relationship with Gaiman after his appetites were revealed to them. It's possible some don't mind it while others did. Yeah, exactly. That's what I'm trying to tell you. That's kind of what I think I was sort of maybe vaguely leading to if I didn't say it out and out. Neil Gaiman has had so many willing participants over the years due to his fame and his work and his status. All those, the power, a little bit of the power he's had and things like that, that I can totally imagine, get an image of him being very, with his statement that came out, that perhaps there is a part of him that I can understand, not empathize, not sympathize, not say it's right or anything like that, but I can see a part of him thinking a little bit confused of like they didn't like it. He can't see it. I can buy that. It's because he's sick. If that's what's going on, he's very sick. They take their literary omnipotence literally. There we go. Yeah. They're unreliable narrators in their own life. Yeah. Unfortunately, this behavior, what do we got here? He didn't. Neil needs an Annie Wilkes to knock some sense into him and his ankles. Oh, I'm your biggest fan. Here we go. This behavior isn't limited to writers, but anyone who has it's pretty complex, but a lack of moral codes. That's a dangerous combination, to have a low moral code to begin with. And being a man with a normal sex drive, admired by many women opens many doors. Yeah, absolutely. I completely agree with that, Gore. Where did we go here? Yeah, good point here. Very good. Yeah, Gore. So we'll just kind of leave that up. Oh, here we go. What do we got here? A. Pilgrim. Billie Eilish has a song about getting her new lovers to sign an NDA. Yeah, well, we don't want to stray too far here now. So that kind of covers what I want to say. Everything else I'm going to say is like allegedly this, the investigation's going on. I'm just being transparent and real with you guys, right? I could go on, and I do have opinions of some of this stuff, right? I think a lot of people have tested the boundaries, and I think what they did is what they did. But you can go so far in your sex life to where you mess yourself up in the brain. Sorry, guys, but the biggest androgynous zone, as many of you have heard in those exact words I just used, is the brain. And once your titillations and turn-ons and things go to an extremes, it's kind of hard to back up and have normal things turn you on whatever is considered normal, but less intense things. You can mess yourself up to the point to where you're like, oh no, I've gone too far and there may be no coming back. So yeah, I could go on and on about those things. I really do hope that if wherever the investigation leads, I hope it's equal, as in we're going to be looking at Amanda and see if there's anything there with her knowledge. And was she feeding people? I don't know. Was she feeding these people to Neil? Because apparently she knew a lot. I think that needs to be looked at. And then the other thing is well, maybe I'll talk about it as things come out, or when the investigation is over, we'll see what happened. But I'm just sort of really glad that this has hit mainstream, because between when you compare what happened to Ed Piskor and compared to how Neil Gaiman was just skirting through there for months because the mainstream wasn't talking about it, it's good to see due process come along and, see an elite, someone who's an elite, very rich person kind of go through it. We'll see what happens. Now, the part where I'm like, am I going to continue reading his work and things like that? Yeah, that's the thing. Yes, I am. I don't know if I'm going to push it on people. I feel like now I need to give a disclaimer if they've never read this or read that, but we'll see what happens. But what was I? In 1988, I was 15. A lot of things were going on when I was 15, and Sandman was something I read and was able to pick up and back up and get things. I had to do a lot of work to get those because those were direct market books. You didn't know how the trade paperback part of comics was going to blow up, specifically because of Sandman, bringing in all kinds of new fans and having convenient reading and things. I actually have a first print of the first Sandman, Dream Country. I think it was Dream Country. Anyway, I have the first Sandman first print trade that came out ever, and things like that. So when I revisit a lot of these stories, specifically Brief Lives, the one I never would have imagined, these stories are going back in time, going back to the 90s, and I'm visiting an old friend. These are benchmarks in my reading and part of my life. Like I said, a lot of Neil Gaiman's novels fall flat for me. The Ocean at the End of the Sidewalk, or whatever it's called, puts me to sleep. But I can turn around and read Good Omens and feel uncomfortable and laugh and get a kick out of it and think about the Omens movies and stuff, right? I'm not a fanboy, is what I'm trying to get at. I'm not that invested in a lot of Neil Gaiman stuff. It's always project to project if I get excited and want to do it and to see things. And now that we have many things that people are speculating on, why? The greatest thing that I think of his work being adapted into another medium is on audiobooks, and it's the Sandman adaptations of his work. Of the James McAvoy is Sandman in those, right? And I think we have 3 acts, and I don't know if the next one's coming out. I could care less about an Amazon TV show getting canceled. I could care less about a Netflix show, doing that, because it's based on merit. If we start throwing away art and things like that because of accusations, you'd probably get rid of half your collection. If anybody has lived any kind of life, and especially before the internet, I would say that on different levels, small things to big things to out lies, everyone has been accused of something they didn't do, or they got by with something they did do. So no, I'm not going to just get rid of Neil Gaiman stuff, and this will not keep me from buying something new if anything happens to come out. That's what I'm trying to get at. And also, I'm not trying to give him a pass in this, right? This is me and my preference. If somebody decides they do not want to have anything to do with Neil and they want to get rid of their books and stuff, I would totally be a vulture to come in to take some of that stuff. That's just how I am. I'm like, send it here and stuff, right? And I'm trying to make sure that we don't go down a well here. I have many, many more things to say. I'm just trying to make sure they're relevant. I'm not repeating myself. Okay, gore, here we go. I think a civil solution is more realistic than a criminal one. It's a lower threshold to prove than a criminal one. and lawyers from both sides will have a field day disposing Gaiman, witnesses, and accusers. The question is for me, will publishers drop him or keep him but fail to promote? This is where I was trying to dodge going. So I'm actually glad Gore here is saying it, because this will be much more eloquent than I could say. Because like I said, I'm totally shooting from the hip. The question for me is, will publishers drop him or keep him but fail to promote his works? In the past, as in the case of Norman Mailer, who stabbed his wife, Philip Roth, who fictionalized his affairs. I'm going to throw in Harvey Weinstein if these things end up being true. There we go. At the expense of his then wife, Claire Bloom, publishers didn't drop them, and their literary fame wasn't damaged in any way. Hollywood in the 30s was supposedly rampant with people going out with underage girls. People always try to bring that up, yet nothing's ever really happened to the status of this people in celebrity status, if you will, right, in history. JLS Comics, NPR, published an interesting article the other day about Neil, and the author's stance was that they couldn't separate art and artists for future work, but it didn't change the past experience with their work. Yeah, that's what gets tainted. Personally, for me, Jared Jones was mentioned. I can't do it with this stuff, right? I can't do it because he was actually, convicted, and the details were out with some of his work. And he has a book where a kid was involved. Okay, what was that Ultraverse book? Oh my God, it's right on the tip of my tongue. But anyway, it was sort of a Shazam, Captain Marvel Shazam kind of riff book. The kid would have a biometric gooey substance over him, and he'd be all muscular. Prime? Was it Prime? Anyway, I don't want to digress too much from all this, right? Okay, the library 8 guys, get your comments in. We're about to wrap this up because all I'll do is just, repeat myself. I love the early Sandman issues for the artist equally as much as Gaiman's words. There we go. I didn't even think about that. Sam Keith getting all that started. All those great artists that came through there. Yeah. Especially Keith, Jones, Vess. P.S. It's still shocking when I think about Ed. Ed is gone. Such a shame. Yeah. And I feel for people who miss Ed, but I feel like Ed did that to you guys, right? I could eat these words down the line in life. We always come through. I'm basing this off of my experience in life. Prime, I can't get past the first 2 pages knowing what he did in real life. Exactly. That's the kind of thing that will taint the work. So basically my stance is don't throw away the work in the past and things like that unless it really is a personal decision. That's with you, and do it. Don't do it for a cause. Don't do it to impress other people. It's got to come from an honest place. You see what I'm saying? So check out what we've done here and what we found out, because we're going to wrap this up here. But we went from Neil Gaiman with his status, legend in the comics business, successful movies and things. And now we have mentioned him in the same breath as a convicted piece of shit like Jared Jones, right? So, I didn't even think about getting into the social aspect and the drop in status and everything, but that's where we're at, okay? Whether he's convicted or not, whether we find the allegations are real or not, the investigation is going on. But even without an investigation, knowing which way it goes and things, I think we can tell here this may be a reflection of how he's going to be viewed in other people's eyes from here on out. What is this? Well, we'll get off here with this. Hey, off work today? Yeah, I'm off work today. It is Martin Luther King Day, but also we probably would have had work called off because of snow, ice, and Palo. Palo isn't in America. He lives elsewhere. I don't know if he wants me to put it out there, but it is between 5 and 8 degrees outside right now, not counting the wind chill factor. Okay. So, and I've been up all night to do this, right? So, guys, we're going to wind it up there. Thanks for everybody that popped in. Thanks for everybody that commented. Thanks for everybody being an adult with this, a grown-up in this. I think the only person that really got upset was me not mentioning Kelly Sue DeConnick. But, hey, this was about Neil. People can do that digging themselves. I really don't even like mentioning her name in anything. Okay, so 2 more comments, and we are out of here. Prior to knowing about Gaiman's personal life, the Calliope story was admired as a brilliant story, but now, for some, the story is unreadable. The story still is true to form for me and admirable. I mentioned for people coming in late, people are kind of looking into Neil's past stories to find clues. I have a story in particular I did that with. The entire man makes a story, same for any creator. Absolutely. Like I said, there's three ways to read a story. The work itself and Gaiman stuff will hold up in that way. What was going on in history at the time. Gaiman has done period pieces that were excellent. He won an award for one with that Midsummer Night's Dream part. And then what's going on with the author, and that's the one that's going to mess people up. Yeah, I'll still read his comics. Yeah, I'm not getting rid of anything. Yeah. Separating the art from the artist is entirely dependent on how close you are to the crime. That's kind of what I just said a minute ago, Jared. Absolutely, I agree with you. If the person is accused of killing your family, you'll have a much harder time separating the art from them. Absolutely, yeah. And there are all laws in America where you can't profit from a crime if you're convicted. So, what happened with Kelly Sue DeConnick? You'll have to. That's a whole other video if I decided to do that. You'll need to look at what people have said about her allegedly and stuff, right? Agreed. Well, I think that's a good way, man. This is a good way to end it here. Separate the art from the artist is entirely dependent on how close you are to the crime. So that's a perfect. You got in here just in time, Jared, right? So everybody have an excellent day. If you're in the winter, if you are in America with the winter in Canada and wherever you're at, stuff, stay warm. Good seeing everybody. Good seeing you, Gore. Good seeing everybody that's popped up here. And be excellent. Read your comics. And yeah, later, guys. Make sure you're subscribed, thumb it up, share it, and see you guys later.